Greetings and welcome to another session of Hackers Power SAT Writing and Language. My name is Eugene. Now we'll keep working on Kaplan's 8 practice tests for the SAT. Now, today's goal is to work on practice test 5, passage 4, success in Montreal. Now, let's go. Now, let's look at the first paragraph here. The Montreal Protocol, okay, remember, protocol is a rule or regulation, but in any case, this is a proper noun. It's a Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. So this whole thing is the name of the term, right? The name of the treaty. It's an international treaty that was created to guarantee that steps will be taken to reverse damage to the Earth's ozone layer, okay, to reverse the damage to the ozone layer, to protect it or maybe to reverse the damage, and preventing future damage. It was signed in 1987. This document created restrictions on chemicals that were known to be dangerous to the protective barrier that the ozone layer offers Earth. Okay, so they're trying to protect the ozone layer basically, right? Try to restrict chemicals that would be dangerous to the ozone layer. Now look at the next sentence here. Without the ozone layer, the sun's dangerous UV rays would alter our climate so drastically, life on land and in water would cease to exist. Okay, so they made this protocol to protect our ozone layer. Okay, so this is a good introduction to the Montreal Protocol. Now let's look at the questions. Now let's take a look at 34. The Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer is an international treaty that was created to ensure that steps will be taken to reverse damage to the Earth's ozone layer and preventing future damage. Now, if you look at the answer choices, there are words with differing words. So this is a grammar question. This is a grammar question. Now, let's consider the original answer choice. We have steps will be taken to reverse damage to the Earth's ozone layer and preventing. You have a conjunction of and here. To reverse and preventing. This is not parallel. You can cross this out. This is a parallel problem here. You cannot have to reverse and preventing. They don't make sense together, right? Because you have a to infinitive here, and you have basically a participle here. Okay, so that wouldn't make sense here. Okay, let's look at the next answer choice. To prevent. Now that works well. You have to reverse and to prevent. That works well. Let's keep this for now. Look at C, prevented. Now you wouldn't have prevented here. It was, if you think about this here, maybe it might be saying steps will be taken to reverse the damage and prevent it. That makes no sense parallel-wise. Okay, so you can cross this out as well. This is not parallel. And if you look at D, was preventing. Now again, this is also a parallel problem. Now let's consider what's going on here. Let's look at the ideas that are given here, or the idea that's given here. So you're talking about a treaty that was created to ensure that steps will be taken to do this, to reverse damage and prevent future damage, right? This is the point of this treaty. So if you think about this whole thing going on, like prevented and was prevented, that's not the objective. It doesn't indicate some type of goal or something, right? You need to have steps to be taken to reverse and to prevent. So logic-wise, it wouldn't make sense either to use prevented and was preventing. You want to take steps to prevent the damage, or to reverse damage and prevent future damage. So the proper choice that you want is B here. Okay, to prevent works well. Okay, parallel-wise it works, and logic-wise it works well as well. You want to prevent future damage, right? You want to reverse the damage and prevent future damage. So that's what you want, B. Now look at 35. It was signed in 1987. This document created restrictions on chemicals that were known to be dangerous. Okay, now look at the question here. Which choice most effectively combines the sentences in the underlying portion? Combines. So this is a grammar question. This is a grammar question. Now let's take a look here. You have, it was signed in 1987, this document created. Now look at the answer choice A. Signed in 1987, this document. This makes sense because it eliminated the idea, the need to make another separate sentence. You have a modifier here, signed, and this signed is referring to the document. So it basically means that this document was signed in 1987. That makes sense. Let's keep this for now. Look at B. Because it was signed in 1987, this document created restrictions. That makes no sense logically. It makes no sense at all. Okay, this idea of because. How can you say that it was signed in, and because it was signed in, it made restrictions? That makes no sense logically. There's no connection with the two. This is just basically just explaining when it was signed. It's just maybe you can consider this as maybe an additional information or a separate information. So it's good to just say signed in 1987, not because it was signed in 1987. So this is wrong. Logic-wise, this is incorrect. Okay, because as I mentioned before, there's no connection with being signed and having restrictions. So you can cross this out. Look at C. It was signed in 1987 and this document. Now, let's consider this idea. You have and here, you have a subject verb there and subject verb here. Now, remember, this is a subject verb and subject verb problem. Okay, remember, when you have subject and subject verb, you always have to doubt at first. You have to consider that maybe this might be not efficient. Okay, there's a problem here because when you think about this here, this is unnecessarily wordy. Okay, the ideas are separated. Of course, they're separated here, but if you think about this, this is not very efficient. If you look at A here, this is much more efficient, right? You have signed in 1987, and it eliminates the idea or the need to have another independent clause. Consider the expression that I always mention. Mike is a teacher and he likes to read. Instead of saying that, why not say Mike is a teacher who likes to read? It's much more concise. It eliminates the need for two independent clauses, right? Mike is a teacher who likes to read. It's much better than Mike is a teacher and he likes to read, right? So this is much better. A is better than C in this situation. So we can cross this out here. Okay, this is a subject verb and subject verb problem. Look at D. It was signed in 1987, so this document created restrictions. This is also a logic problem. There is no relation with these two. Just because it's signed, it doesn't make it automatically capable of creating restrictions. That makes no sense here. It was signed, so this document. So you can cross this out as well. Okay, so in this situation, A was the best answer. Okay, because it improved it, it made it very concise. B, as I mentioned before, logic problem here. This was unnecessary wordy and inefficient. And D had a logic problem with so. Now, let's take a look at the next paragraph. A hole in Earth's ozone layer was discovered over Antarctica as long as 2 years prior to the signing of the treaty. Okay, so they discovered a hole in Antarctica. The discovery brought the human impact on the environment to the forefront of the international conversation. Okay, to the front of the conversation. So basically, it made it a very important topic to discuss, right? It became a very, very important topic. Now, look at the next portion. The massive hole was evidence that a global response was necessary. Okay, we have to respond to this, a global response, and that large-scale action was needed. The Montreal Protocol became effective January 1st, 1989, and nearly 100 gases deemed dangerous to the ozone layer. Okay, so nearly 100 gases that were considered dangerous to the ozone layer have been phased out. Okay, have been eliminated. As a result, the average size of the ozone layer decreased significantly. Okay, so this is mentioning how the progress went, right? It was presented, this problem was presented, a hole in the ozone layer. There was a hole discovered, and it became a very important discussion, and they made the Montreal Protocol happen, and then because of that, the hole decreased. Okay, so it's giving a progress of what's going on with the Montreal Protocol. Now, let's look at the questions. Okay, 36. Now, look at this here. You have a hole in Earth's ozone layer was discovered over Antarctica as long as 2 years prior to the signing of the treaty. Now, if you look at the answer choices, there are differences in words here. Some are short, some are long, so this is a grammar question. Now, consider the original. As long as 2 years prior to the signing of the treaty. This sounds very, very long, especially when you consider the other answer choices here. Okay, the minute you see the answer choices, you might say, oh, maybe we can find something a little more concise than this. Let's consider this. Okay, let's consider the other answer choices first before we make our decision. Now, if you think about this idea of 2 years, as long as 2 years, you don't really need to say as long as. You could just say just 2 years prior. You could have said that too. And the sign of the treaty would not be necessary because we were already talking about the treaty, okay, the signing of the treaty. So let's look at the other answer choices here. Long ago, 2 years prior. Now, to have long ago and 2 years prior is redundant here. Okay, they're both talking about time back then. So you shouldn't have both of them in the same sentence. Okay, this is redundant if you think about this here. Or maybe you could consider this as wordy. Okay, you can cross this out. This is also wordy too. Okay, this is wordy. Now, look at the next one. 2 years prior and years prior. Now, of course, you might say, oh, maybe, oh, since D is much shorter, we should just keep it as years prior. We should choose D. But if you consider what the original sentence was trying to intend, they wanted this author wanted to mention 2 years. Okay, if you have a specific year, you should keep it in there. Okay, C is the answer that you want. 2 years prior. If the sentence says something like many years or something like that, like just many years, then you can maybe just choose years prior. But since you have a specific year given here, like 2 years prior, to make it very specific, then you should keep 2 in there. So this is what you want here. C is the answer. 2 years prior. Now look at the next problem, 37. The discovery brought the human impact on the environment to the forefront of international conversation. So as I mentioned before, it became a very important topic to talk about, right? To the forefront, it brought it to the front of a conversation. And you have the massive hole was evidence that a global response was necessary. Now, if you look at the answer choices here, there are differences in punctuation here, so this is a grammar question. Let's consider the original sentence. You have a subject here, discovery, brought, you have a direct object here, brought the impact on the environment to the forefront of international conversation. You have a comma here, and then you have a subject and a verb here. So as you know, this is a run-on sentence. Okay, it does not have a conjunction here, so this is a run-on. You can cross this out. This is a run-on sentence. Now, we have to fix this. We have to fix this somehow, okay, this run-on. Now look at answer choice B. International conversation, yet the massive hole was evidence that global response was necessary. This is wrong here, logic-wise. This is problem. Okay, now remember, yet indicates contrast. Now, if you think about what's going on here, there is the discovery of that hole. It brought it to the forefront. It became a very important topic to talk about. And if you look at the portion afterwards, it says that the hole was evidence that a global response was necessary. It's continuing with the idea that something has to be done. There's a very emergent situation that's going on, and it has to be fixed. So if you say yet, it says some type of contrast, like maybe like something. You would use basically yet when something's positive and something's negative, something like that. But this is these ideas are still continuing in the same direction, so you should not use yet here. Now look at C. International conversation dot the massive hole. Now this fixed the run-on sentence part. Okay, that's okay to put a dot here. Okay, that's okay. Let's keep this for now. And look at D. International conversation. So the massive hole was evidence that. Now, this is also incorrect logic-wise. Okay, this doesn't make sense here. Okay, just consider this idea. Like basically, it means if you put so here, it means that since it was a big topic, since it came to the forefront of the conversation, it was evidence. The whole was evidence that it was necessary. The order, maybe you could consider the ordering awkward, maybe, okay, if you think about this. If you really want to nitpick, maybe you can say this. You can maybe say the evidence that a global response was necessary, so the discovery brought it to the forefront of the conversation. Maybe you could change the order and it will make more sense. But to say that it was a big topic and then so the evidence was necessary, that has no relationship. There's no logic behind this here. Okay, so one more time here. If you really want to say this, you could just switch the ideas around. A massive hole was evidence that a global response was necessary, so the discovery brought it to the forefront of the conversation. You could have done that, but okay, since that's not the case, this is wrong logically. Okay, so the order is wrong. The ordering is wrong here, if you think about this here. So the answer that you want is C. Just put a period here. Okay, it fixes the run-on sentence.